Okay, people. So I am joined today by Paul Brooks. Now, Paul's a vet of the film scene and he's worked on so many great things. So, Paul, thank you so much for joining me today. Really appreciate that.
Kevin, thank you for taking the time.
No, so yeah, you have been producing and executive producing for a long time. Like, what was what kind of got you into all of this?
Um, you know, I didn't grow up with TV. We didn't have a TV in my house until I was 13, but my dad loved movies. So I grew up loving movies. I grew up in that period starting late 60s through the 70s of just great American movies. And at a time when you could see great double bills, it was an extraordinary time. So I just grew up just with a passion for movies. So I always wanted to do this as a function of, how deeply they'd affected me, as a kid.
Mm.
And, happily bumbled my way to actually doing it.
Well, that fumbling has turned out to be a very good job because you have worked on some huge films, man. Like, what does that feel like? And when you get involved with a film, do you know, like, is there a point where you realize that this could be huge?
Um, oh, blimey, excellent question. What I would say is I've been fortunate in that like with the original Greek Wedding and the original Pitch Perfect, that they were two scripts that were just so fantastic. I thought, Christ, I just couldn't believe how good they were. So I was right place, right time, and that's just the universe kindly smiling on me. Through to a movie I did, Champions, last year with
Mm,
Woody Harrelson and Bobby Farrelly, which is based on a Spanish movie, Campeones, which I went and saw at a friend of mine at Universal actually had recommended I go and see it. I saw it at the Spanish Film Festival in LA, and I just thought, God, this movie's so good that I just want to remake it. And so every time is look, you know what it's like, mate, with what you do. We're lucky enough to do something that we really enjoy, and so you just want to jump in whenever the moment crops up. And I've just been fortunate in film that I have been there where moments have cropped up and I was able to jump in on those moments.
mm.
Um, and then, one always believes in what one's doing. But I would say one never knows if a movie's going to break out or not. Well, I think one knows when one's made a good movie,
Yeah.
whatever that means. But you never know if a movie's going to catch fire. That's just in the lap of the gods. And I can tell you on, my Big Fat Greek Wedding, the original movie, I thought this movie is terrific. And I thought, in the US, we could maybe do $30 million box office, which, for a $5 million indie movie, particularly at that time, would have been really impressive. I didn't think we'd do 230 million. It was crazy,
Mm.
it's, but I think that's, if you're fortunate enough to be in the zeitgeist, um, when everything just comes together, things just sort of take over, and that's what's happened. It's fortunate. It's happened. I've been lucky more than once, and it's a beautiful thing. But my overwhelming emotion is gratitude. I'm just forever grateful that I've been able to do what I wanted to do and had some moments. And everyone, I still get the same thrill going into a movie theater and seeing a movie of mine, and just I always sneak in the back and just see how an audience responds. I get the same thrill, by the way, as just a member, as an audience member. I love seeing trailers. Can't wait to see. I saw Oppenheimer recently, just blew me away.
I haven't seen that yet. I'm looking forward
Oh,
to checking it out.
great movie.
Now, I have to pull you up on something because you
Oh,
said, right, you were in the right place at the right time, you
yeah,
know? But I will say, right, a load of other people may have read some of these scripts. You might not have been the first person to read it. Like, if you got the script first and were like, oh, perfect, boom, I'm signing this. Yeah, you know, that's a bit of, that could be a bit of luck. But there's times when you wouldn't have been the first person to read a script, but you're the one that's like, I'm going to take a chance on this. I feel this will be something. So I think that, you know, there's something to that as well.
Yeah, Well, kind of you, incredibly perceptive and bang on. I never, rarely the first one. Folk go, other places before me. But I think the only thing I will say, which sounds like a rather ghastly pat on the back, which is not in my nature, is that I jump without fear. I don't mind making a fool of myself. I don't mind falling over. I don't mind being completely wrong. But I just want to do. And if I believe in something, then I'll jump. And
Yes.
so that is true. That's the only sort of attribute that I think has helped me along the way, is that I do function that way.
I think that is probably the best way to function in this kind of industry, because, you know, there's a whole heap of films, right, that are good films, great films, but you might not like them. You know, but you can look at the production and everything and go, this was done very well. The cinematography,
Sure.
the set design, the costume, all of this is great. It's not for me though, right? Which is fine, because not everything has to be for you. But I think it's being able to see those things, see the quality in something and be like, I might not connect with it, but I know there is a big audience for this thing.
Right. Well, you certainly one hopes as an audience, but no, yeah, I completely agree. I think it's, I just happened to connect with the material that I connected with. Other smarter, more successful producers out there just wouldn't have connected with it. And it's no more, no less than that. If you just connect with something, you connect. Look, I'm a Gooner. I'm an Arsenal fan. There are people out there who bizarrely don't support Arsenal.
Well,
I can't
they're
help
crazy,
that.
Paul. They're weird people. Come on now. Who doesn't love Arsenal?
But,
Oh man, I've been there with you. I'm through the dry times. You know what I mean? Through those dry
man.
times.
Oh man, there's been plenty of them. Yeah, but let's not get that's so great. Let's we got a bit carried away last season, but it was still brilliant. But let's not get too carried away. Listen, we spent 200 million. We must have a shot this year, but
I know, right?
we'll see. It's so funny.
Oh man. Hey, but right before we get onto the thing we're here to talk about, I will say as well, you've been able to find people and give people an opportunity at the very beginning. Like, you gave James Gunn his, big shot with Sliver. Bobby Farrelly with Champions, that's his solo directorial debut. So it's being able to spot these things is, not everyone's got that.
Man, Kevin, you are asking some on questions. What I would say is, yeah, I mean, the other thing that I've been able to do is I've had a good nose for talent, and talent that may be unproven, but I think I'm pretty good with people. And with James, when we were talking about trying to find a director, I just said to him at one point, I said, man, why don't you just direct it yourself? You wrote it, you know how to do it. And Jason Moore, who hadn't directed anything, directed the first Pitch Perfect. I just had dinner with him, and he just seemed so smart to me. I thought, mate, you should just, great, excited, make the movie. Liz Banks, who I made Slither with, the studio, Universal, my partner on Pitch 2, said, what do you think about Liz directing Pitch 2? I said, I'm in. I'd offered her movie to direct way back. I'd offered my friend Tunde to direct The Fourth Kind when nobody had given him a movie, but he'd written it, and I thought, well, this guy, if he's written it, he's got a great shot. Yeah, Bobby Farrelly. Look, you know, you never know with directing partnerships who does what. But I was like, there's no way this guy doesn't have great instincts. So again, it's back to sort of an earlier point, which is that I've not been afraid to jump in, and I've just believed that talent always outs, and if they can, you know, if they can smell it, you can smell it on them. And so I just rolled the dice with them, and I have to say, it's worked out virtually every time. In fact, I've just finished a movie called Last Breath in Malta, based on a documentary of the same name about a diving accident in the North Sea, an extraordinary story. And I hired the documentary director to direct that movie because the documentary was so extraordinary. And we were like talking about directors, and then my son and I, who I did it with, we sort of had this epiphany of like, well, why don't we have Alex direct it? So, yeah, great question, but I've always been a fan of jumping in on early talent.
And you jumped in a third time with My Big Fat Greek Wedding.
It's nicely done.
What was it that you know, brought you into this film?
Well, Nia had actually had the idea for this movie many years ago, and then for a variety of reasons, you know, it became sort of the time to make it. We went through this, you know, the challenge of sadly Michael Constantine being unwell, and knowing that he wasn't going to be a part of it, and he was the one who said, "Just guys, go make the movie." And then, of course, as you know, he became his death became actually a key constituent of the movie. But we all wanted to go back to Greece, to have a finish to it all. You know, it's been a 20-year journey, and I just thought it was a lovely story, and just wanted to be supportive and just wanted to make it.
Okay. Now, throughout your career, right, you've done producing and executive producing. On this one, you're the executive producer. So, because you guys, you're not really front and center most of the time. We don't always hear about who's producing, executive producing a film. You know, it's the cast, it's the writer, it's the director, you know, sometimes the person that does the score, cinematography. So,
Sure.
What was your kind of role with this film?
The Greek Wedding has been different to a degree with all my other films, in that I you know, as ever was part of the development process. You know, Nia and I would talk about the script, and certainly you know, actively involved in post. But because it was a movie that Playtone, Gary Getzman, and Tom Hanks's company, and Rita had brought to me back in the day, you know, I wanted to be respectful of their perspective on it, and sort of take, you know, a little bit more of a backseat than I would normally do, and certainly, you know, wanted to be supportive of Nia and her take on it all. But it's always been a very collaborative family experience. So yeah, it's been brilliant. It's just been a slightly different scenario to me. But you're right, by the way. Nobody wants to speak to producers. I understand that because we're a dreadfully dull bunch. But we grind away behind the scenes, and really all we're about is supporting talent. You know, and then, you know, you hope you have a perspective that, you know, is part of the discursive process. And, you know, sometimes one's right, sometimes one's wrong. You know, when it comes to marketing a film, I try and I get in quite deep there, because ultimately, you know, as you know, it's one thing making a film, and it's harder than making a good film. You hope you've made a good film, but then the distribution is key. You know, and I've been lucky. I've had Universal as as my main distribution partners for over 20 years, and so we have a great shorthand, Universal / Focus. But the marketing is as important as the film. If you can't get that campaign right, it's tough to get folk into theaters. So I tend to be anal obsessive about that.
Well, I mean, we have seen it go wrong so many times, right? I think a big
Yeah,
film I always reference is John Carter, because I thought that was I enjoyed the hell out of the film,
absolutely.
but I don't think anyone understood what it was. I think if you'd read the original books, you would know, but there's a lot of people that haven't read those books. So it's just like, what is this film? And I think the marketing campaign did a they spent a load of money, but it was not clear. And
Right,
sometimes you see the marketing budgets of these things, and it's because I do marketing and comms,
right.
and I think to myself, you didn't need to spend all of that money. Like, I don't understand where all that money went for what you had produced. You know,
Yeah,
it's a very odd thing sometimes.
yeah. No, you're totally right. By the way, because I do agree, I thought it was a terrific movie. That sometimes you just can't get the campaign to click, and that can be a mixture of a bunch of things.
Mm,
Sometimes it's honestly it's just mistakes. Other times, for whatever reason, you just can't find the point in it, the key in it. But what you're absolutely 100% right about is you have to give the audience a clear message. You even if the clear message is, by the way, there's some mystery in this message, but at least we're telling you the ride, the basic DNA of the ride that you're going to go on. And if you
yes.
don't do that, and here's the thing, you know, ironically, Slither didn't work commercially. I love the movie; it's a wonderful movie. Um, it didn't work because we were in that tough comedy horror subgenre, which is really tough to get right because it's mixed messaging and folks. Well,
Mm.
hang on, what am I seeing here? So, um, yeah, to your point, it's always sad when you see a really good movie that just can't reach an audience. But also the other thing is that honestly, mate, it's a crapshoot. You just don't know. Some you think, God, this movie's going to work, and it doesn't. That movie's not
Yeah.
going to work, and it. You just don't know. So at the end of the day, you know, the punters either fancy it or they don't.
Mm.
It's a strange thing. Somebody had come up with a brilliant description in one of the trade magazines years ago. I think it was Screen International, and asking about why do people go to movies, and it was sort of an overarching comment speaking to campaigns, but it was essentially saying, and I still believe this, that it's like when you go to a dog park and somebody blows a silent dog whistle. We can't hear it, but all the dogs come, and all the dogs come rushing. It's like some movies have that, silent dog whistle where you think. I mean, look, My Big Fat Greek Wedding. I I never knew it was going to be the monster it became. It
Mm.
had the silent dog whistle.
Yeah.
We had a good campaign, but it had the silent dog whistle, and so you know that's just the nature of it. Sometimes is things happily explode and you didn't expect it, and you sort of scratch your head a little, but you're just grateful that it happened.
Yeah, because I know you handled the UK distribution of Donnie Darko, and that did
Yeah,
not catch fire straight away. Which were, I when I first watched it, I was
yeah.
blown away. I was like, this is incredible. But it took ages for people to seem to jump on it.
Well, and also ironically, the very similar to Austin Powers and Pitch Perfect. What I mean by that was it exploded in home entertainment. The video numbers were just insane for that movie, and we had uh, Austin Powers, the original movie, did very well, but it didn't do like crazy great. Same with Pitch
Mm.
Perfect, which did very well, but not crazy great. But the home entertainment numbers on DVD were insane, and so people found those movies in home ent, which then gave us a platform. Both of those movies, I wasn't involved in Austin Powers, obviously. I'm just using it as a comp.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Where the sequels to those movies were huge theatrical hits because people had discovered them in the home entertainment world. So really interesting. I think that's one of the good things about the film ecosystem.
I know it is very fascinating. All of these different, there's so many components to it, you know.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
talking about Pitch Perfect, actually, in the TV series, is it Bumper in Berlin?
Right.
Bumper.
Yeah.
Did that experience help you with My Big Fat Greek Wedding 3? Because Bumper in Berlin is set in Germany, so it's handling production and scouting and just getting those licenses and all of that in a different country. So how did
I
that...
had nothing to do with that TV series. My colleagues Max and Liz handled all that, because I don't. I mean, obviously, I participated as a rights holder, but I don't do TV. As I say, it's not a world I know. I didn't grow up with it. So happily, Max was in Berlin grinding away. So all credit is due to him and Liz on that.
Right.
I'm totally without use in that scenario.
Hey, that's fine, because you're useful everywhere else. So that you know,
Sometimes.
you can't have everything, I guess, Paul.
Well,
What was the biggest challenge for you on My Big Fat?
you know, every film is a challenge. Just getting, the locations to gel, getting the timings to work out. You know, we were making the movie during the pandemic, so that was really challenging, and having to juggle COVID cases and yeah, we got through it all, but that was that was. Give me 1 second, because I'm about to lose my sorry, battery was go. There we go. Yeah, so that it's just on a practical level, that was a super challenge, and it was a bit nerve-wracking, because I made 3 movies during the pandemic, and we couldn't get COVID insurance, so we had to take the risk, and that was yeah, that was a bit nerve-wracking. So that, candidly, that that was all, other than the usual challenges of making a film. But as I was saying, making a film is a high-class problem. People have real life challenges, particularly now, and making a film is just, I'm grateful to have the problems.
Okay. Now, because there's been a few films that have filmed in Greece, Mamma Mia, that was in Greece, Mamma Mia 2. I believe Linklater's third before film was in Greece. So, like, right. Do you, if you're looking at a certain location that you haven't worked in before, do you sometimes reach out to a friend who may have dealt in that field, dealt in that spot, and be like, what were the constraints? Like, what were the issues that you had? Is there anything I should know? Like, do you ask those questions? Like, how does this work?
Yeah, we try and do some due diligence, but fortunately, Gary and Tom and Rita had made Mamma Mia in Greece, certainly the second one. So there was a comfort level there.
Of course, yes, they were on
yeah,
it as well, weren't they?
Yeah, so that made life, yeah, the path was a bit easier, and yeah, and the confidence path was certainly a bit easier there because of that.
Oh yeah, that must have been helpful.
Yeah.
Was there any thought about bringing out some, My Big Fat Greek Wedding branded olive oil? Yeah.
Yeah, it's so funny. Again, fun question. When we after the first movie, there were all these. You may remember, sort of Big Fat this and Big Fat that.
Oh
And
my
Big
gosh,
Fat
yeah.
TV
It
show and a
started
Big Fat,
all of that stuff.
yeah, and somebody had opened a Big Fat something restaurant, and we were like, bloody hell. Well, firstly, can we sue any of these buggers? Then we're like, well, we can't. What we're suing for? We didn't invent the words, My Big Fat. And then we were, well, yeah, shouldn't we do something on the merch front? Shouldn't we? And then we just didn't think about it anymore. But it is, one wonders going forward, particularly because we've had such great partnerships with Greek organizations in both the UK, Australia, and the States. As to whether yeah, should we maybe think of something like that? In fact, I'll take that. I'll take that as my idea. So that, and then my big fat Greek wine and no, but
I mean,
yeah,
would it be wine or would it be grappa? Is it grappa the Greek?
no, ouzo.
Ouzo, that's it.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Woo, ouzo is strong as hell.
By the way, Greek wine is actually very good. So if anybody hasn't sampled Greek wine, it's definitely worth trying.
Yeah, there's a long time ago that I had some very nice Greek wine, actually.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
I
some
went
good
to a
gear out
wine
there.
tasting. Yeah, it
Yeah,
was very good. Yeah, no, that I think that would be fun. Bring out some you know,
yeah.
just like
Well,
bakery stuff, like,
if this movie works, then maybe we'll do that.
Oh man. So like when it finished, when everything was finished, like what was that feeling like? Because it feels like this was a very emotional kind of journey. So to have it all completed and see that final finished version.
Yeah, I mean, it's always very satisfying when you finish a film. And as you say, this one, that is the slight kink with this one is that we do go on an emotional journey on this one beyond the others. But it's still a fun ride. But we certainly take we take a lane in that third act, but which I hope people find satisfying, because ultimately it deals with loss, but it
Yeah.
deals with hope, and it's still ultimately very life affirming. And it's about the nature of family and everything that families are all about. Love and loss, and
Mm.
laughter and pain and all of that. But I think it does it in the Greek fat wedding way. Hopefully, the tone of it, I think, feels authentic. So, yeah. But in answer to your question, yeah, it was very satisfying. A movie that, as I say, Nia had the idea for many years ago to have got it, in the can. And then it's so exciting to be having this conversation, for example, just that it's out there now. It's
Mm.
and I shall still sneak in the theaters tonight and just sit at the back and watch it, because I love seeing people in theaters and how they react. That thrill has never gone away from me.
Yeah, that must be a nice experience to just
Totally.
see, yeah, that enjoyment of people consuming something that you've worked so hard on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So do you think this is the last time we catch up with the clan?
Excellent question. Um, I mean, I couldn't possibly comment, Kevin. Um, no, I think let's see if people like this one, and if they like this one, it's really. I think if Nia feels there's a story to tell, then I'm sure we'd love to see if there's somewhere else to go. But let's see. It's down to audience reaction to this, and how she feels about it. But I'm just delighted to have got the third one done.
And distribution, like, because it's hitting the cinema this
Yeah,
Friday.
yeah,
And as you said, like with other films, like their success really blew up in the home entertainment field. So when you're looking at this film and the barometer for success, is the streaming aspect a component of that?
sure. Yeah, yeah. The whole ecosystem has always been crucial. From back in the day when once movies migrated to then having a television life, then video came along, then DVD came along, and before then pay TV came along, and now we have the streaming world. It's a crucial part of the ecosystem. And so but the key part, certainly for the movies that I make, are that distribution has to be led by theatrical. I love seeing movies in the theaters, and movies like Greek Wedding, I think, are movies that folk, I just hope they see them in theaters, because it's a communal experience. But also that lays up a great platform for folk to discover these movies, in the afterlife, whether it's VOD or pay TV or whatever it is, or TV. Theatrical gives it the exposure, and I think I'm a huge believer in cinema. It's been part of our lives and part of our cultures for decades. I don't think it's going away. People are coming back. We talked about Oppenheimer. There's Barbie, of course, and the smaller movies that are breaking through. My friends Max and Liz have just made this movie Bottoms, which is doing terrific business in America, and hopefully will do worldwide. So I'm the ecosystem is an ecosystem, and there's different shapes to it over the decades in terms of what percentages of that jigsaw each is contributing. What matters is that there is an effective ecosystem, but more than that, I just love cinema, man, and I just love seeing movies in cinemas, and I don't believe that experience is ever going away.
I think that is a perfect way to conclude this, man, because I highly agree with those words. That's a great sentiment, and I don't think that's ever gonna change and go. So thank you so much for your time, Paul. Really appreciate, and I love this conversation. Hopefully we can have more down the line, because this has been great. Thank you for your time,
Kevin. Total pleasure. Cross fingers for this season. But it's been an absolute pleasure, and I loved it. Really brilliant questions, man. Thank you so much.
Oh, no problem. All the success to you, man. I think fans of this franchise will be very happy with this won't say this last one, this new entry. So
thank you.
All the best for you, man, and looking forward to see what comes from you in the future.
Much appreciated. Look out for Last Breath, coming out through entertainment film distributors this time next year.
Splendid.
That's the next one.
All right,
but
man.
Appreciate it, mate.
All right,
Cheers.
take care.
Thank
Bye.
you.